We are live. Hello, welcome to the second UWindsor Free Speech Association live stream. I'm Francis Litwin. This time I won't forget to introduce myself at the beginning. And I am hosting this discussion. I also forgot to mute the preview, so yeah, that's why I had to stumble there. Right, I'll introduce my panelists. I'm not sure what order you see them in. It might be different for me. Going from left to right, I have Xin Xia, who is one of our members. Say hello.
Hi.
Then there's me, so I already introduced myself. Then there's Khaled, Khaled El Reyes, our association president. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi. George Basha, our another member. I believe you're the president of the Conservative Association, right?
That's correct, yeah. The UWindsor Conservatives, yeah.
I actually didn't know that until recently, so.
Oh, really? Okay.
I didn't know that last time at all.
Oh, that's all right.
Then we have Dallas Gibb, our another member. Hi there.
Hello.
And we also have Nadine this time.
Hi.
Hello. So yes, so what we're going to be talking about today is guns and gun control, I guess, and gun portrayal in media. I'll let one of you introduce that, I guess, that subject, because I'm not too well versed on it. Gun control, I guess, and gun portrayal in media. Nadine, you're streaming our audio.
I don't know why that. Sorry.
Just mute our stream if you're watching it as well. So I don't know. Anyone want to present gun control, how it is right now?
Well, I guess I could start off by saying that generally, personally, I'm very pro-gun, but I do think there needs to be some things like mental tests, background checks, that kind of stuff. And that being said, I do think Canada's laws are too strict. I do think that they generally, if you're talking about comparing gun laws between Canada and the United States, I think the United States does it much better. And things are a lot better than what people perceive it to be in the United States. I think a lot of what's going on is exaggeration. I'm kind of bouncing around, but I like guns is what I'm trying to say.
Like guns. You did mention that you tested some out at some point, right?
Yeah, I've just been to a shooting range like once or twice.
Cool. Cool. Actually, I think this is a better idea. We go around the table and talk about what we know for now. Dallas,
what we know about guns, or like
your stance. What do you think the situation is, and what your experience with guns is? What your stance on them are? Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I don't really have much experience with guns. I've never actually owned a gun or held a gun. But I don't see it as something that should be controlled. I think that the United States has done fairly well in the way that it controls its guns, and by very limited controls of said guns. But I definitely think that when it comes to like more advanced firearms, there should be some sort of, like Khaled said, mental health testing and whatnot like that. But again, I don't know a whole lot about guns and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm willing to listen to the experts on it. And so far, the experts I've seen and read is that they aren't the issue that people on the left tend to make them out to be.
Okay, cool. So you said at the beginning that you're not for gun control, but then you say you want checks on psychological checks.
When I say gun control, I mean like the gun control that we have in Canada, or that people are calling for in response to mass shootings like the one that happened today, where guns are almost completely outlawed or completely outlawed. So that's what I'm talking about when I say gun control.
Okay. All right. I guess, George, you're next up.
Well, I'm a gun owner. I've gone through the whole process of getting my gun license, so I might know a little bit more on it. My stance on it is that within, at least in Canada, The gun laws are fine. If any, some of the gun laws here are actually absurd and kind of stupid, to be honest with you. I don't feel like any more laws would prohibit any of the mass shootings that have been going on. And I just base my opinion based off some statistics that I've looked at. But yeah, I'm a firearms owner, and I love guns. So that's my viewpoint right now, and I can get into that later on once we start discussing it.
Interesting. So you know the Canadian process of getting a gun, right?
Yeah, I've been through it. I have friends that have their gun license. My brother has a gun license. I've taken the safety courses. I've gone through the whole procedure in getting a gun and everything like that. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll come back. You'll probably lead us into the next topic then. And what about the U.S. Version of all that? Do you know anything about that? Just so I know.
I do know about the U.S. I think, to be honest with you, I think our Canadian system is better. I understand from the American perspective why they would be against some of the regulations and the procedures in getting a gun, and like how we do it, just because of constitutional rights, because they're afraid that it will infringe on their constitutional rights, whereas here we don't have it as a constitutional right, so we can be more flexible in determining. So their constitution in a way plays a role in why they can't have like, I guess, a formal, they can't be as strict as we are, per se, even though some states are actually more strict than us, actually, believe it or not, when it comes to gun control.
Okay. All right, yeah, no, we'll definitely come back to you very soon. Right, Nadine, what's your opinion?
Okay, so I have had some experience with guns. I'm not an owner or anything. I don't know the specifics when it comes to laws or guns in general. I just know very general things about them. I know like the history, like why they why I guess the right is so adamant about keeping their guns, I suppose. So I guess I could give a different perspective, like an American perspective. So like a little, so it'll be a little bit more clear that way. But on the Canadian side, I don't really know much. I don't have a lot of information or knowledge on that, so I won't be able to speak to that as much.
Okay, very interesting. Zin?
I've been living in Canada for 99% of my life. I've never handled a gun or touched one, but I'm still a very pro-gun Canadian. As for gun laws, I'll admit that I don't know too much, but I do know the very, very basics, like how to get a gun, for instance. And oh, and then there's the 3 categories of guns. Prohibited means you're not allowed to have them, and restricted and non-restricted. I know that if you want a restricted gun, you have to pass a special safety course, and non-restricted guns are pretty much everything else that aren't in the previous 2 categories. I'm sorry if this sounds horrible. I'm reading off of my phone right now.
No worries. All right. Yeah, I did hear someone's phone vibrating, maybe. So if that was very audible. So whoever that was, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put it on silent.
Yeah, don't worry. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good. We went around. Oh, sorry. Actually, I didn't talk about myself. Yeah, guns. This stream, I'm probably going to be arguing somewhat the other side, just like I did last time, because I spent half of my life in Europe. I was all of my teenage years in Europe, so I was taught, how guns are evil. We watched Bowling for Columbine. I don't think I see it should be completely regulated, but I do see the argument for complete regulation. Yeah, well, we'll get back into that, I'm sure, soon. George, tell us how one gets a gun in Canada.
Okay, so in Canada, the way that you do it is you go to a gun shop. So here in Windsor, I went to, how's the place called? General Gun. It's called General Gun. It's on Dougal. And you go in, you tell them, hey, I want to apply for my gun license. So they say, okay, you need to register for a course. So there's two courses. You can either apply for your restricted or non-restricted license. A non-restricted license allows you to own rifles, shotguns, usually what people use for hunting or target shooting. And for your restricted license, it allows you to own handguns. So so what happens is you tell them what you want to do. It costs about $120 for your restricted, or for your non-restricted, and for the full license, it's $180. So they book you a date, you go to the class. It's in total, it's about 8 hours long. They usually do it on the weekend. You do it like usually on a Saturday and Sunday. And it's a whole course with a gun instructor. He teaches you all about gun safety, different caliber sizes, how to load guns, how to hold them, how to store them, all the Canadian laws that you would need to properly store it, travel with it, and so on. And at the end of it, there's a written exam that you're tested on, and you need to at least, I believe it's 90%. You have to at least get 90% right to pass. So once you're done your written exam, there's a practical exam where you'll walk into a room, and there'll be different types of guns, like pump shotguns, bolt action, and so on. And they'll tell you, grab that gun, check if it's safe, load it with ammunition. They give you fake ammunition to load it with. And if you do all the safety procedures properly, they pass you. And you have to get all that right. So once you get all that right, they send you in the mail your test results. You mail those to the RCMP. Well, actually, prior to that, they also give you another form in which you have to fill in all your information. And then you need to have references, people that have known you for, I think, at least 4 years or so. And then you got to get your picture taken. You send it off to the RCMP. The RCMP then does a background criminal check on you. They call your references, and they check your medical documents, see if you're mentally stable and such. So that takes around 6 to 8 weeks. Just for them to do
sorry to intrude here. I'm curious. Did they actually call your references?
Yeah, they called one of them.
Okay,
some people,
cool.
They don't. The references I had on there, actually, like one of them already has their gun license. There's like a rumor that if you have people that already have gun license, they're more trusted as references, so it speeds up your application. I don't know how true that is, but they do. And then the whole process took me about 3 months from the day that I walked into the store, applied for it, got the gun, went through the gun course. About 4 months, about 4 months. So once that's all done, they send you your gun license in the mail. And then you can go to a gun store, and then you show the gun store your license, and you say, hey, I want to buy this gun. They check your gun license, run it in the computer, see if everything's good. If everything checks out, you go home with your gun. That's pretty much it. That's the whole process.
It's funny with that. I don't think I have much of an issue with the stuff, but the processing time is something that I feel like is something that's gonna make people think twice. Like if you're thinking I'm gonna have to get a gun and wait for months to get it, I think that would maybe deter some people. And illegal guns are still available on the street if someone really wants one.
That's the thing with the whole time why it takes so long is one of the reasons is, like, let's say I just got in a big argument with someone and I get my gun license out of anger. Maybe, with that period of time, I won't be as angry and I won't think like that's kind of like they obviously probably wouldn't even give you a gun if you're that dangerous of a person. But part of the process of waiting so long is that if your reason for getting a gun was something like a nefarious type of reason, that they're hoping that period of time would cool you down in a way. So that's part of it. And actually, if you go get a restricted weapon, they actually make you wait another 3 weeks. Even so, for a non-restricted weapon, I can go in the store, buy it right away. For a restricted weapon, which would be handguns or AR-15s, there's another 2-3 weeks where they make you wait, and then they do a background check again, and then the gun store will call you, say, hey, your papers came in, you're clear, you can come pick up the gun.
How much is a gun usually? Like obviously depending on what kind of gun, but does
It could honestly, you're looking at from like $200 all the way up to $3,000-4,000. Some guns are like $10,000. But in general, roughly, it all depends. Handguns go from at least $500 to around $2,000, depending on the make and quality and stuff. So there's a huge price gap depending on what kind of gun you get.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that you didn't mention a whole lot, or maybe I didn't catch it, was the actual requirements for even being able to apply for a license. What do you need to do? What age do you need to be? What citizenship do you need to have if you need to?
Yeah. So you need to be a Canadian citizen. You need to have valid government photo ID. And there is no age restriction. Now, if you're below 12, you have to be accompanied with some, like a parent, a guardian. But there actually isn't really an age restriction. Someone as young as 10, for instance, as long as they're with the guardian, and that guardian has a gun license themselves, can get one.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so like if I was a parent and I go hunting and I want, you know, my 10-year-old kid to come out hunting with me and I want him to have his own gun, I have to first have my gun license and a hunting license. And then my kid, I would register him for the gun course and he would go do it. And your gun license is good for, I believe, 5 years. Every 5 years, you have to get it renewed.
Okay. And another thing that I just thought of is, well, everybody knows how U.S. states have all their different laws, and they're usually not, as I said, not the same. How is it here with the provinces and territories?
In Canada, it's not by province. It's just federally. The laws, gun laws, are federal laws. So, for instance, I can carry a shotgun out on the street and walk around with it. That would be completely legal as long as it's not loaded. Now, the cops would probably stop me and say, "What are you doing?" But the reason why that law is in place is that people that live up in the Yukon, that live up north, where there's bears around, people who go hunting for a living, like they don't have grocery stores, so hunting is their primary source of food and stuff. It makes sense for them to carry that gun, walk around with it. So it's a federal law. So like laws that would make, say, I guess, a lot of sense in the Yukon are also applicable here, I guess, in Ontario. It's just you wouldn't do it because you would grab a lot of attention. The cops would stop you, and it'd be really suspicious of why you're carrying a gun around. But it would be completely legal.
Okay. Quick interruption. We have a new guest here, Mark Zon, who is our vice president. I'm not sure. Hang on. Okay, there we go. You can unmute yourself. Our vice president of the association.
Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Hi.
I've been following on mostly. I missed like the past 2-3 minutes, but I heard everyone's introduction already, so I'm mostly on board. I've also got this beer here. Let's go.
Nice.
Well,
I needed it after the frustration of getting this thing to work, but no, we're good now.
All right, perfect.
Sure thing. Do you want to do your own self-introduction? Talk about what you think about guns?
Not much to say. I don't have a whole lot of experience handling any. I was in cadets for about half a year when I was in grade 8. And that was basically covered my whole crash course on guns. But my opinions are mostly how guns are handled in the media. I have a pretty good understanding of gun laws in Canada and in the United States, but not a lot of firsthand experience myself. So.
Okay. Quick question from the chat. We have Dee, our secretary, talking to us. Do you guys think that mail being sent within Canada should be watched or monitored more to stop people from obtaining guns illegally?
Mail?
And yeah, so should mail be watched more carefully to check for guns? I think that's the question. There's also an example here. For example, my mom works at a store that sells guns, and when they were shipped from Canadian manufacturers, people would steal them while they were being shipped.
I don't think so, no.
I think I didn't know that there was this thing until I traveled in airports and train stations, subway stations, whatever in China. But they have these, I guess it's like an X-ray machine or whatever for your luggage and stuff, right? I suppose if they did that for packages here within Canada just to make sure that there wasn't like a bomb or anything, you know, like that. I suppose I would be okay with that, but I can see why people would want it to be like 100% totally like private or whatever.
I've never really heard of that really being an issue or a problem where guns have been getting stolen that way. Like for instance, if I wanted to order a gun online, I just have to provide my gun license information and ID, and if I get approved, it gets sent to my house. But I've never really heard of that as being a problem. Like you would have to know what's in the packages, but I don't know. I really don't know what happens behind the scenes with Canada Post and stuff and what they do, or if they handle that type of packaging any differently.
Actually, I do have a small question here. Oh God. Okay, sorry, never mind. I forgot. But well, to lead us on into like our next little thing, I'm curious about stores here. Like when you're searching for ammunition, how do you get your ammunition? Because there is this myth, or I don't know, maybe it's a stereotype, maybe it's true. In the U.S., you could just go into a corner store and you have a whole section full of ammunition.
Like a Walmart.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Walmart does. You can go into Walmart and buy an AK-47 if you want to in the States. Here in Canada, it has to be. There's just like honestly like Canadian Tire, sporting goods stores that have the license to sell firearms, and if they have a license to sell firearms from the government, they also can sell ammunition. So a lot of times I'll go to Canadian Tire and buy ammunition and just present them your gun license, and you can buy as much ammunition as you want. But you wouldn't be able to in Canada, for instance, to go to like a Max Milk or something, or a Walmart. You have to go to a registered place, like a place that sells guns.
Okay. Oh, and I actually remembered the question I wanted to ask. Does Amazon sell guns? Can you order guns off of Amazon?
You know what?
Have it through Amazon Prime.
I do look for gun parts on Amazon. There's a large market for like gun accessories. If it's like a lot of gun stores, I don't know. I've never looked for an actual gun on Amazon. But like websites, there's websites that do sell guns, but you do have to present your whole ID and everything, and it gets checked.
I'm finding nothing on Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, not
so
on
Amazon. Watch out. You might be on some list now.
Maybe not on Amazon. I don't know about guns per se, but I know ways to buy uranium online and legally too. I'm sure there's a loophole where you can get a gun easily. But I mean, that ties into the last question a little bit, right? With, I guess, the states or the government checking our mail to see if any guns are going in the packages there, right? To do the same thing for ammunition on Amazon, I guess.
Hang on, I think you can get guns on Amazon. I just went on Amazon.ca and I typed guns into the search bar, and yeah, they do sell them.
I don't know. I spent a lot of arrows.
Can you put the link down?
I haven't found any real guns. At least I highly doubt that they're real.
Wait, is that on Amazon.ca?
It can't be that easy.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of these guns are real.
No,
these
are airsoft guns. These are they're like BB guns. And stuff.
Right, yeah.
Oh.
I've heard that they're so accurate sometimes that they make airport security guards check you and think that they're guns.
Yeah, I know. There's something like.
I mean, if you take off the little orange piece, then it looks like a real one, right?
Yeah, no, I actually used to play airsoft actually, which is like paintball. It's like a military sim type of game, and you can get guns that are pretty much identical to the real thing, except internally they're completely different. But you can get them like fully wood or metal, and yeah, no, these guns are all airsoft guns. None of these are real, like actual.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those would make useful props.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Although
so if we ever do a pro gun event on campus, we'll
just wave airsoft guns all over the place.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think there are some university laws about filming stuff with guns in them, though. Our media professors in communication and film.
Oh no, I'm joking. We wouldn't do that.
But no, just to drive the point home. It's not it's not that easy to do anything with a gun here, I believe. Like even if somebody sees like an outline of a gun, they can call the police. They say, oh, I think somebody's shooting somebody, and they'll stop a bus. They'll come to university and close down a classroom. You know.
I think that's honestly because there is a lot of fear mongering in relation to guns. Like I said, I think a lot of the issues in the U.S. Yes, while issues do happen, the extent of it is exaggerated, and I do think that guns aren't as evil per se as people think they are, if I'm being honest. And there are so many numbers that prove that legal gun owners are pretty safe with their guns for the most part. So
in regards to
I know, a lot of it is fabricated and exaggerated. So yeah.
This is an airsoft gun, by the way. It's fully metal.
Actually, I'll excuse myself shortly. So you present your gun there if you want to.
This is what you saw in eBay.
George.
Yeah.
You're an Arab guy holding a gun in front of a camera. Think about that.
No, it's fine. It's fake. It's an airsoft gun. Watch.
Got that in the safe?
Watch. Let me take this off. So the battery goes in the back over here. You can see some wires and stuff. And it powers an like a gearbox in there that compresses air, and it shoots BBs. It's not real.
Nice.
So, but it does shoot sound.
Well, I mean, to a gun illiterate Canadian like myself, though, I wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
I'm certainly couldn't tell.
I mean, there's been stories of cops that have been fooled by Toys R Us guns that have just been spray painted black.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, yeah. But back onto topic though, I don't agree with any, like, for instance, the Canadian gun laws. They, in a sense, they work fine. Now, let me give you an example where gun laws are where they don't work. For instance, right? So, in Canada, if you have a rifle, centerfire rifle, you're capped at 5 rounds per magazine. So your gun is only allowed to shoot 5 rounds. And this happened because of the Quebec shooting back in the 70s, I think it was, where a woman's university got shot up. So before there was no restriction, you could have 30 rounds in a gun, and that wasn't a problem. But the thing is, with the magazines, there's a little rivet in there. And if you take out this little pin, your magazine now can hold 30 rounds. So if someone then wanted to go and commit a mass murder, they simply could just modify that magazine and then completely go over that gun law. So, and responsible gun owners are not going to do that. The only thing that like, gun laws in general only hurt law-abiding citizens, and they provide criminals with an advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
You can circumvent these laws very easily. And most shootings, like a lot of these people that, like a lot of the times you see in the inner cities with all these gun crimes, these people are using guns that they don't even have gun license. These are guns that are bought on the black market. So no matter what gun law you had there, it's not going to prevent that guy. So you could, like, and you can look at Chicago.
You can get the parallels between 2 states, Illinois and Texas. Texas is one of the highest states in terms of legal gun ownership, yet it's also one of the lowest in terms of homicide rate. Meanwhile, they have Illinois. They have some of the strictest gun ownership rates, yet they're known as the murder. Yet Chicago is known as the murder capital of the USA and the state.
Yeah, it has the nickname.
There's a lot of gun violence going on in the state.
You have to think about it this way, though. I mean, if somebody wants to go and like shoot up a, I don't know, like a supermarket, right? You're not.
Yeah.
You're gonna be more inclined to do it if you know that nobody there is going to be able to like shoot back at you. Exactly. But if you know that like other people also have guns, like you're less inclined to do something like that.
Well, that brings up, actually, if you look at the UK, since they banned handguns, handgun crime has gone up 40%. See, like, as a criminal, criminals are more inclined to go into areas that are gun-free areas. Like, if I'm a criminal, I'm going to break into your house with a gun that I attained through the black market, knowing that you don't have a gun.
Exactly.
Now, if you're a criminal, how terrified would you be in Texas going into a guy's house and he might have an AR-15 or AK-47? You're not going to do it. You're going to want to go into a neighborhood where you know people can't defend themselves.
Exactly.
Like, gun laws, again, they only inhibit law-abiding citizens. They give advantages to criminals. Criminals don't
Right, they really help criminals, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think the political culture is really important too, because that makes sense in the United States, but most Canadians don't even really care about guns or gun control. We're not interested in that stuff. And I don't know how easy it is to smuggle a gun into Canada, but seeing as none of our citizens are armed and our gun crime rate is very, very low at the same time, so it's not a one-size-fit-all glove, you know what I mean?
I think in the industrial world, we're the 4th most armed country. Well,
in terms of military capabilities, but our citizens aren't armed. If we were invaded, we couldn't defend ourselves.
No, not military-wise. Actually, citizens that own guns. We actually are one of the most. Canada actually has some of the most guns within its populations. Actually, with legal gun owners. The gun industry is actually very big.
Really?
Yeah.
So is this per capita?
Very surprising.
This must be per capita, though, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah, per capita, yeah.
Now, are like hunting rifles still counted within that, or?
Yeah, hunting rifles, handguns, yeah, all sorts of.
Because like I've known like friends that have fathers who go hunting and have hunting rifles, but I've never once met anybody that has a handgun for self-defense in my whole life in Canada. So it's...
Well, you know, in Canada, actually, you're not allowed to have any gun for self-defense.
You're not allowed to have
you
any
can't
weapon for
conceal carry
self-defense.
here.
Yeah, you're actually not allowed to use guns for self-defense. So if someone broke into my house, I wouldn't be allowed to use any of my guns.
You can't even use pepper spray.
That's weird.
How do you expect to use guns? You know?
Well, we're not even allowed to carry pepper spray in public. That's illegal.
So what are you supposed to do? Call the police and wait for them to show up?
Yeah,
But then your stuff is gone.
the law is you have to use reasonable force. So if someone comes in with no weapons, I'm not really allowed to use any weapons. If someone has a knife, I can use a knife. If someone has like a bat, I have to be able to use something that's the equivalent of what a bat is. Now, it goes up to the jury and up to the judge. So obviously someone that weighs 100 pounds and like 3 big guys come into their house, if she uses a bat, then they're going to look at that and be like, okay, it's understandable. But if some 100-pound guy breaks into my house and I pick up like a hammer and I just bust his head open, they're gonna be like, okay, that was unreasonable. That was a little excessive. So that's how the defense in Canada works.
Right. I just wanted to ask, how does a use of gun? How is that defined? So if you actually use the gun as an intimidation tactic, you can't.
No, you can't even. I can't even pointing the gun, even if it's unloaded, I'm not allowed to do it.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we even have a question from Evil Warrior 2000. What if you use a gun as a bat?
I was thinking the same thing, actually.
Yeah.
Would that be legal?
It wouldn't be, but again, it's up to the jury and the judge to decide if, you know what, okay. It's a gray area. It's really up to the determination of the judge, but as a baseline, it's illegal. You can't. Your gun should have been locked up. It shouldn't be out open that you can grab it and use it as a bat.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question then.
Yeah.
If under the gun laws, you're not allowed to defend yourself with your gun. Why even own a handgun to begin with under these laws?
I'll tell you from my perspective, and a lot of people that I know that own handguns, they own handguns just for the hobby. They like guns. They like going to the range and shooting it. It's just for sport. A lot of people do competitions, like they have like gun competitions where you go into a field and they have a bunch of targets, and it's all about quickness and accuracy. So it's more of a shooting sport more than buying a gun.
Actually, need a license to get in a shooting range here?
Well, yeah, you need a gun license, but like, for instance, if you guys came with me shooting, I would just have to have my license, and you guys can come shooting with me. But you wouldn't be able to go alone.
Good to know, George.
Yeah, for future. We can do that.
So are the laws for handguns the same as for shotguns, like where you don't have to have any minimum age?
Yeah, no, handguns are completely different. So handguns go into the restricted field. They're considered restricted firearms. Everything about them is different. So for instance, like I said, if I had a shotgun or a rifle, I could walk around with it. I could throw it in the back of my car, drive to the range. I could drive to my friend's house. It's not an issue as long as it's not loaded. But with a handgun, you're only allowed to drive to the range with it and back. I can't have my handgun, go to the shooting range, and then go out to a bar someplace. if I was to get pulled over by a cop and he sees that I am a gun owner, checks my car and finds that gun in there, I'm gonna get in a lot of trouble because I'm not allowed to take it past that. Like, he's gonna ask, why did I go to the bar? Why didn't I go back home and leave my handgun at home? On top of that, the ammunition has to be completely separate. It's a lot more strict. You're not allowed to go outside into a field. Like, so if I have a rifle and I go in a designated area in an open field to go shoot, I can do that with my rifle. But restricted weapons like handguns only can be shot at a gun range.
And what is the minimum age for a handgun then?
You know what? That's a good question. I
got that on Google right now.
I don't know what the minimum age actually for a handgun.
I know for the States, to have a shotgun, you have to be, I think it's 18, and then for a handgun, you have to be 21. So I know even there's a difference.
That actually, I don't know what the age restriction on handguns. Like for any other gun,
apparently it's 12.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
But there's two different. There's a minor's license and then there's a regular. You have to be above 12 but below 18 to get a minor's, and then once you turn 18, the minor's license is expires and you have to get the adult one, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That's just the first paragraph that I found when I Googled it, though. So don't quote me on how accurate that is.
No, it sounds right. They're actually, a lot of people are surprised. Our gun laws are really not that tough. Like, there is a process, but it's, as long as you can prove you're a responsible person without a criminal background and psychologically you're sane, then it's not a problem to get a gun in Canada.
Really, really interesting. So this kind of leads me into like another point of discussion. So we have really, really like non-stringent laws compared to the U.S. So if the U.S. had the exact same laws, would you say, as we do, would you say that would be better or worse in that case?
Infinitely worse, in my opinion.
You guys go ahead.
Well, like I said before, I think the political culture is a lot different in the United States than it is here. Plus, they have a lot more people condensed in a much smaller space than we have. So to restrain gun laws, I think would give a hand to the criminals who aren't going to follow those laws, right? But I mean, I think it could bring potentially another civil war like we saw with Abraham Lincoln again. That wouldn't go well with their culture at all.
No, the United States has militias in almost every state that is willing to fight if their gun laws are restricted like that. So like up in Michigan, actually, they have a large militia over there. And these guys train on the weekends and they're fully decked out in military gear. And their sole purpose is to fight against government tyranny. And if the government was to infringe on their Second Amendment rights, they would be there fighting it.
So I'm sorry, I missed the initial question. Can you repeat it?
The actual question? So it was basically if the U.S. had the exact same laws as we do for guns, would it be better or worse?
Frankly, I don't think it would. I mean, okay, if you look at it historically, right, the reason that they have the laws that they do is to, I guess simply, if you want to put it simply, it would be that like they don't want the government to be able to, I guess, do anything to them. So the people can fight back against the government, right? So I don't think they would have all of these restrictions or whatever.
Well, another part of it is this, right? So what they're afraid of is that if you change anything with their Second Amendment, what is stopping the government from changing their First Amendment?
Exactly.
Anything else from the Constitution. So if you can change something within the Second Amendment, that gives precedent to changing something in the First Amendment. So that is actually one of the big reasons. Now, should they have, say, example, a basic safety course before getting a gun? Yeah, maybe. I think that would be reasonable.
They don't already? I thought they did.
I think that's the misconception, is that it's so easy to get a gun in the United States, but it's really not. You have to go through tests and stuff. You have to go through courses. There's so many things that you actually have to go through. But talks about it, they just talk about it as if, you know, like, oh, you just walk in and you can grab a gun. But
yeah,
that's
well, it depends. It depends a lot on the kind of gun you want to get too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. You basically just said everything I was gonna say, Nadine.
Sorry.
And also, I think there's.
That's all right.
I also think there's something else to add to all that, in that if, hypothetically, the United States would adopt all of Canada's gun laws today, it really wouldn't work well for anyone, because first of all, what are you going to tell illegal gun owners? And secondly, a lot of the illegal owners, they're suddenly going to have a major advantage right there.
Well,
like the U.S. is in a position right now where I think, you know, restricting more gun laws is going to be really harmful for everyone, regardless of how people are going to react. I think it's going to be much worse for everyone, because you already have a lot of criminals with guns. So naturally, you are going to have to defend yourself from that.
Well, I think the peculiar thing is that, like, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Whenever there's a big gun crime like the Vegas shooting that just happened, or any major shooting that gets into the news, everyone on the mainstream media in the United States is perpetrating for gun laws that are more like ours in Canada. But I've never seen that as the popular opinion, like, among actual Americans.
That's because the media's all, you know, left-wing. All the big media companies, you know, are left-wing. Of course they're going to parrot the...
Well, I mean, there's a lot of citizens that are left-wing, too.
Well, that's not even the issue. You have states like California, and you have cities like Chicago that actually have stricter gun laws than Canada.
And
like,
higher crime rates, gun
and
rates.
Much higher, yeah. So there's no correlation there with, you know, stricter gun laws and less crime. So it's not possible to work. Now, a lot of times people will bring up, for instance, Japan as an example of gun control and how it works. But the issue, but with like Japan right now, pretty much has no gun violence, and they have probably one of the strictest gun laws out of any country in the world, in the industrial countries in the world. But the issue with it is completely different. You have to look at the culture. Mm-hmm. Japan, after World War II, became a very pacifist country. No one was interested in guns because of the war and everything. And there isn't that many guns in circulation already. In the United States, there are more guns in circulation than there are people. So the only
thing that plays a role in that, the U.S. is a major gun. It has a major gun industry, right? So
yeah. But not only that, if to have a system that works out like in Japan, all guns would have to be confiscated, which would be basically impossible. So you can't implement. Say, a lot of people will look at other countries, but forget that the context of everything is completely different. And it's not going to work there. Gun control.
It sees a lot where you have people from a whole bunch of different Western countries trying to apply, you know, their own cultural values to the United States, not realizing that, yes, while there are some similarities, I do think the United States does have an entirely different cultural background from a lot of these other.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's look at one of the big things, and a lot of the problem is a lot of it is misinformation. So a big deal, a lot of people wanted bans on the AR-15. For anyone that's an AR-15, they're like, oh, we don't need assault weapons. We don't need, but what they don't understand is this is coming from people that don't know anything about guns, right? So what makes an AR-15 then more dangerous than an SKS or an AK-47 or an M14? I can list a million guns that are capable, that can do the same amount of damage and kill the same amount of people, but the AR-15 gets this bad rep because it's a black gun. That doesn't change anything. And it's kind of like here in Canada where you have actually, there is a ban on the AK-47. The AK-47 is not allowed to be sold in Canada simply because of the name, simply because it's seen as an evil gun. But you can buy guns that are basically identical to the AK-47 in Canada, and it's completely legal. A lot of gun laws are made by people who just don't know anything about guns. And a lot of times in the media, you'll have people talking about guns, reporters, news, like the CNN, talking about stuff, and it's like, wow, like you guys absolutely don't know anything. Like they'll use the word assault rifle. Okay, well, define to me what an assault rifle is. What makes an assault rifle any different than any other standard gun you could buy? Like they're all semi-automatic. They're not fully automatic. Fully automatic guns are banned. So what capability difference does someone have with an AR-15 than someone with an SKS? There isn't. You'll be able to kill the same amount of people. So
I mean, when people like Jimmy Kimmel are going on national TV explaining what the gun laws of the United States should be, and they don't know the difference between an automatic and a semi-automatic rifle.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. A lot of them you'll see, even on my own Facebook, oh, we don't need, why do they have fully automatic weapons in the United States? They don't. It's illegal. You can't get fully automatic weapons. most.
I honestly think it's a big part of it is fear-mongering and using buzzwords. Because, okay, you look at the term assault rifle. If you don't know anything about guns, that does sound like a scary word, for example.
Well, yeah. And what a lot of people don't understand with the United States is gun ownership and the Second Amendment is not about defending yourself against home intruders. It's not about hunting. It's simply about fighting against a tyrannical government. That's the reason why it's there. It's not about, so a lot of people are like, why do you need an AR-15? You don't need it to go hunting. You don't need it for this. Well, that's, the Second Amendment is not there for that reason. So if we're at least talking in the American sense, then it's because of the Second Amendment, and it's the fight against a tyrannical government, and that's why they need an AR-15. So,
Meganerd in chat brings up another good point. Zin, mute yourself, please.
Ringing. Can you mute me?
Here, just a second.
Oh,
I can't. Wait. There we go. Zin, muted. Okay, good. Yeah, well, okay. Meganerd brings up a good point. What's the gun violence in Switzerland, when everyone has a military-grade weapon, right? So I don't know if you know, but in Switzerland, basically everybody has a gun. They're ready to militarize at any moment.
I don't know what their crime rate for guns is there, though. I have no idea. So
I think it also has to do with the country's cultural viewpoint. Because you look at Switzerland, it's always been more or less a merchant state, trade state. So, and Switzerland have always kind of been involved in this kind of. I'm not making a lot of sense.
well, listen, I have a friend actually that's from Switzerland. He lives in Switzerland, and in Switzerland, military service is mandatory. So these people do get the proper training with these weapons. And to be in the military, obviously, you have to be psychologically fit. You obviously can't have a criminal background. So these people that have these military-grade weapons have been trained with it, and these people are, good law-abiding citizens. If they were to go to jail, these weapons would be taken away from them. So it all comes down to the psychological, stability of the person. And something that a lot of people like to forget, they'll state these large death tolls because of guns in the United States. But they seem to forget that actually the majority of gun deaths in the United States are due to suicide. So really, the bigger problem here is mental health than the actual gun. So when you see these large numbers in the United States, it's most of it is due to actually suicide than actual people going out and killing people. And then, for example, another thing that's not clear is when they say, the United States has a certain amount of mass shootings. But the FBI claims, if you look at the definition by the FBI, it's four or more indiscriminate killings with a weapon, right? But that's simply a gang member going down the street and doing a drive-by and killing 3 or 4 people would be considered a mass shooting. But when you say mass shooting, you think of Sandy Hook, you think of Vegas. And when they pull out these numbers, then you're like, oh, wow, really that many mass shootings go on, when really it could be simply due to the large number of gang violence that happens in the United States. And those shootings are done with the use of illegal guns. So again, gun laws wouldn't prevent any of that.
A quick question from D. Coming back to Switzerland, she's saying everybody has a gun, but nobody has ammunition. Is that true?
Yeah.
Actually, I was looking at the laws on Wikipedia while we were doing all that, and I was reading about there's different laws for how to own a gun and different laws for how to buy ammunition, let alone two that are pretty vigorous.
Right, so that's an interesting thing, right? You may have completely unrestricted guns, but absolutely restricted ammunition.
Well, actually, I didn't read thoroughly what the rules for buying a gun are, but buying ammunition basically follows all of the exact same rules and then a couple extra on top of that as well, according to this Wikipedia article anyway, so take it with a grain of salt.
Just to back up George's point about the gun-related deaths in the United States, it says here at the page that I'm looking at that there's 33,000 deaths due to injury by firearms yearly, but 64% of all of those deaths are suicides. So it's more than half.
In the U.S.
Yes,
more than half of suicides, and I imagine that a part of that extra 36 90%, a big chunk of it is to illegal gang violence. I can imagine a big chunk of that is because of gang violence too as well.
Well, yeah. Well, back to what France was saying about in Europe and how it's different. If we look at the UK, and you said you lived in the UK.
No. I just a few months after I was born, so I don't remember anything.
Oh, okay.
But I do know that in the UK, it's actually not that difficult to get a gun. People do like to hunt there. There's
they go hunting. But
isn't it I'm not 100% sure on this, but I heard that handguns are banned in the UK. Can someone confirm or?
Yeah, no, that's
I got you.
What?
Oh, it is?
Yeah, in 1997, they did a ban on handguns. But recently, the new study has come out, and this is actually, you can find this on the BBC, which I would say is a pretty is like the CNN equivalent, in which handgun crimes have gone up 40% in the last 2 years. If we
imagine my shock.
Yeah, well, look at France, for instance. There are actually more illegal guns in circulation in France than there are actual legal guns.
Oh, that's not good.
Even though in France you have these gun laws, you still had the terrorist attack in Paris. They're using AK-47s, which are banned, and which they grabbed from the black market. So again, for gun laws to honestly work, you'd have to have a situation in which you live basically in a vacuum, where there's no access to the black market. And a lot of people that like to advocate for these gun laws forget that, these are the same people who say, what the war on drugs is a failure.
It's a very inconsistent position, I think.
Yeah, they'll say, oh, listen, drug laws don't work. Let's legalize drugs because clearly people can get drugs. People a 13-year-old can get easier than he can get liquor, right? And you have all this money and investment in these drug laws, but people still get drugs. And it's the same concept when it comes to guns, and especially in the United States when there's so many guns out there.
Another point brought up by Evil Warrior 2000 is that there's the Schengen area. Sorry,
does anyone know who that guy is? Is he just a random guy commenting on
maybe
YouTube or?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
I'm
pretty sure I know who Mega Nerd is, but I don't know who Evil Warrior is. Anyway, so would you think that maybe all those illegal guns that are in circulation in France, maybe they're from the Schengen area? Maybe they're from other countries?
Yeah, it's that area is like a borderless area where they have an agreement. But, no, like, for instance, they are from other areas. Like, for instance, in France, a lot of the illegal guns stem from back in the 90s when you had the Balkan Wars going on. It's kind of Europe. It's kind of a problem within Europe because of the European Union, where you can cross borders no problem. But I guess we can go. This could be a huge topic. I think we should really center this topic around more if we're going to focus on the United States, Canada, or we're going to talk about Europe.
Because the gun environment in every part of the world is a little different.
Well, actually, since you brought up France, I think it's important to note the history of all of these places too. Because America, they had to have their. They had to fight for their freedom, right, from the British. France had the French Revolution. We didn't have anything like that. We were granted confederation by the British, and then we're still technically under them to this day. So we didn't have to have this revolutionary war and then have that ingrained in our history and become part of our political culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's something really important to note about, especially in the States, and like how patriotic they are and how much most people, well, not most, I don't want to say most and generalize, but a lot of people are, they want the Constitution to, not be touched at all, and it all relates back to their history, right?
So, actually, I have a question. Actually, for the people that believe that there should be some sort of gun control, what kind of gun control would you say would curb the gun violence in the United States?
That's a lot of the gun control that's proposed wouldn't have, for specific crimes or something like that, they wouldn't have even stopped the people that were there, or there's laws in place for that already, and then they went outside of that, and then somehow more gun control would stop him from breaking the laws that already exist,
No, exactly. I don't know. What do you think, Francis? Because I know you said you're kind of in the middle. What would you recommend?
Sorry, I was managing stuff in the back end. What was happening?
I know you're kind of in the center of this. What kind of gun laws would you say would help the situation in curbing gun violence?
So, I have yet to be convinced that having guns just openly on the market in general, except for the very basic ones that you use for hunting, I'm not convinced that there should be any other kinds, right?
Okay.
And I think, as you pointed out, the way to get rid of them is definitely not just restricting people from buying guns. That does not work at all. What does work, what I think would work though, is curbing the production of guns and their sale, attacking the businesses that sell them,
How would
and
it curb
slowly draining them from the market until all of the ones that are currently in circulation just wear down from use, and then start implementing those kinds of regulations if necessary. The thing is, I just don't see the point in having guns just openly around. It's just it's only a way to invite different kinds of crime.
Well,
do you trust your government then?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, because
I think
we are in free democracies.
I think that's the thing. I think people who do trust the government, they think these gun laws are great or whatever, right? They don't see the need for guns. They think that the government is there to protect them, right? Like, is that kind of like generally what you think?
Yes, of course. I'm not speaking about countries with totalitarian dictatorships, right?
Yeah.
They should be able to insurrect themselves. But right now, we're in the best political system we've ever known.
But it could flip so easily, and I think that's the thing.
Well,
Look at Venezuela, for example.
well, let's look at the left in the.
I know.
Apparently, Trump is Hitler, and they're the ones against guns. They don't want them.
No, it's 100%.
Constitution needed on that.
Yeah, but like, even if let's take Germany as an example. Before Hitler became a dictator, they actually had a democratic system in place. He imposed martial law by burning the Reichstag, and then took away the people's guns.
Yep.
Every dictator, whether it was in Cuba, in Venezuela, they took away the people's guns and then they implemented their laws, right? So yeah, we do live in a system like that, and I don't think it'll ever change, but you never know why. Yeah. Why take away the possibility of protecting yourself? A lot of times.
Well, that's the thing. I think you always want to be prepared for the worst possible scenario all the time.
Exactly.
Well, we get an off chance where, and I think this is where actually the United States went left, which I don't understand. They're very anti-gun, at the same time they're very anti-Trump. It's like, okay, if you really hate the current government this much, wouldn't you want to have a means of protecting yourself in case?
Yeah, in case
things somehow go very, very wrong.
It's a matter of principle, right? Because you may trust the government right now, but 50 years from now, you may have a reason not to trust the government anymore. And you want to make sure that you didn't give up your right to defend yourself from that government 50 years earlier.
Well, not only that, back to what you were saying about they should restrict weapons to simply just hunting weapons. Let me give you an example. If I have a 12-gauge shotgun and I buy some, buck rounds, and I can go into a shopping center and I can tell you right now, I can kill a lot of people with a shotgun. If anything, a shotgun, the way it works is it shoots out hundreds of small BBs that's spread out. So if you have a big crowd of people and you got a semi-automatic or even a pump-action shotgun, you can pump out shots very quickly with that, and someone who's skilled to use it can reload that really quick. Now, have a group of 2-3 guys walk into the mall with a bunch of shotguns, which are meant for hunting, can kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's not even the fact. Someone who's going to kill someone, they don't even need to use guns to do it. In Japan, there was a guy that had a katana, went into the subway, the train station, and I forgot the number. It was a huge amount of people. I'm going to look it up, actually.
Imagine those places are crowded in Japan.
Yeah. Like, just last week, a guy used a truck in New York.
Guys use trucks all the time.
In Paris, not in Paris, in Cannes, The guy had a semi truck. He killed almost 100 people. Ran over. They were doing that marathon, the bike marathon thing or whatever. Killed over 100 people. Right. So the Boston bombings, the marathon run, they used pressure cookers, and they built. Someone who has the incentive to go and kill people. Okay, you took away his guns, but he's going to use something else. Right. So again, if you want to limit it to hunting rifles, someone with a pump shotgun, I can tell you, will do a lot of damage with that.
Did you see that Steven Crowder video where Not Gay Jared undercovered that Antifa gang on, I think it was Utah?
Yeah.
And then there was one guy in there that admitted to having a sawed-off-style shotgun, which is illegal in every single state somehow, and the damage that he might have been able to do with that. And this is just some dumbass university student, right? And that's just someone, like, older than that, somebody more knowledgeable, someone who could actually have, like, serial killeristic tendencies. A horrible way to say that, but, like, somebody who has the potential for that. And, maybe if somebody like this dumbass university student is able to get a sawed-off-style shotgun and do that much damage, I don't know where I was going with that anymore.
Well,
but to take into question, how are you able to do that?
Actually,
I mean, you also have to consider if somebody wants to hurt another person, they can do it with anything, right? Like, I knew a kid in grade school who stabbed another kid through the cheek with a pencil.
Yeah.
Well, as I was saying, it all comes back to the argument that if you're going to do gun control, all you're going to do is screw over law-abiding citizens, because,
Well, listen to the irony behind this, all right? So what I was talking about, what happened in Japan. So let me read this. A 20-year-old man killed 30 people, including his grandmother, with a katana, and he was killed by a police officer using a shotgun. So a shotgun
that is
stopped this
so
guy.
anime. Oh my god.
Yeah, and
it's probably horrible to laugh at that.
30 people. So,
I'm a horrible person. I need another beer. I'll be right back.
And I also want to bring up another point Francis brought up, which is regulating private businesses and trying to lower the production of guns. It's not going to be done because I see that happening, and I see a lot of potential negative effects coming from that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, such as you are opening a much bigger gate for the black market. You got to keep in mind that a lot of these gun producers are basically working with a whole bunch of military contractors. So bypassing a lot of these laws and regulations could be really easy.
Oh yeah,
and,
this is definitely
much more weapons in the black market. So at the end of the day, it's still going to hurt everyone.
right. No, I have no specific plan for that. It's just that I know that it's something that would have to be taken care of very, very carefully and slowly to work. Right. It's not a matter of, oh, we impose this law and then the thing's fixed. That's not going to happen.
Oh, of course. Any radical change in political culture has to be slow.
Well, no, I'm not applying radical change. I'm just saying that if you try to regulate an industry, especially an industry this big and strong and powerful, even, I think it's going to come bite everyone in the ass at the end, because the black market is a huge pool, and you have so many different military contracts and loopholes and ways to break the rules that all this law is going to do is just essentially put more ink on paper. So it's what I'm saying is that they're not going to make much of a difference in anything.
I think a lot of people bring up the slippery slope argument, right? Well, you start with a minor regulation now, but eventually that snowballs into like a total ban on guns 2 decades later or something like that.
Yeah, just quick aside here. What is with that whole slippery slope? A lot of people say that, oh, this is a fallacy. It's never true. I don't think it's never true, right? It does happen. People get used to something.
There are a lot of signs that already are happening, as you can see it now.
Well, yeah. Like, let me give you an example. We're not going to get into it. It'd be a huge topic. But back, like in the 90s, conservatives were made fun of when they were opposing same-sex marriage. And they said, well, the reason we're against it is because of the slippery slope. If you allow same-sex marriage to happen, there's going to be a lot more absurd things happening. And if you look at today with the whole transgender and the whole issue, the social issues that have been happening lately, and what people identify as, it kind of stems.
Well, you should call it traditional family structure as well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole goal, is to break down the family.
Well, yeah, that's actually that's the whole postmodernist thought.
Mhm.
Karl Marx thought of the destruction of the traditional values, but that's a whole completely different topic.
Yeah. Let's rein it back in here.
Yeah.
Sorry about
The
that.
whole thing is that I think slippery slopes are something to worry about, especially when you're talking about adding more regulation, giving the government more power. I think worrying about these slippery slopes is a valid argument because at the end of the day, you are giving away your own freedom and your own sense of autonomy.
Well, I'll tell you this, and no offense to anyone here, but I don't think the only people that should be making gun laws are actual people who are educated on guns.
I'm offended, George. Fuck
I'm
you.
sorry. No. But you guys have done some research.
Wow, that's a very non-right statement there.
No.
People.
No,
So you're saying nobody can represent you unless they also own a gun?
No, not own a gun. Educate.
That sounds an awful lot like you can't
No. Let me make it clear, right? It wouldn't make sense someone who's never, who's not a doctor or not in the biological or scientific field to start putting in laws about healthcare, right? You would want someone.
But they do that.
They do, which is stupid. But someone who makes laws and stuff that regarding people, the population's health, should have the academic background or the credentials to make those judgments. And a lot of times when it comes to gun control are people that don't even know the difference between semi-automatic and fully automatic assault weapons, just they don't even understand the terminology. And these are the people that are making these laws. Like, I'm not saying you have to be a gun owner. I'm not saying you have to like guns, but at least be educated on the topic and understand what you want to put a ban on.
I agree. I think we could all agree that, like, government officials with suits and white hair, they're not always the best people to make laws on any subject matter. Just because you're elected into government, that doesn't make you an expert on any subject matter that could have a law attached to it. You know what I mean?
No, there should.
So George,
yeah.
What level of education would people need on that subject to make the laws?
Well, when it comes to guns, you really don't need an education, right?
I'm talking about like courses or something like that.
Like at least have your license, have your gun license, so you know what the process is. Go through the whole thing. Do you know what I mean? And understand the terminology, understand how guns work, understand how they function. Because if you understand how they function, you can understand how then implementing certain laws wouldn't make sense.
I don't know how accurate it is, but I have heard the argument that the majority of people in the States who want more gun control aren't gun owners. And the majority of people that want it the same are gun owners. So.
Well, that's obviously a bias too, right? You're going to want less restriction on your hobby, but...
Of course, but someone who owns a gun obviously has more knowledge on what it's like to go through the gun ownership process as well, right?
Again, which I will tell you, as a gun owner, which is it's stupid. Like, I'm going to show you an example. This is not a real gun, but... Let me give you an example, right? So, you buy guns and magazines in Canada, there's a little pin right here that restricts it to 5 rounds. I think this law is stupid. And a lot of people are like, well, why would you want to give someone the capability of having 30 rounds in a magazine so they can kill more people? Because the person that's willing to break the law and kill people is willing to take that little pin out of there, modify it so it does hold 30. So that ban doesn't prevent anyone. And it's not even difficult to do. It's not like, oh, well, we make it harder for them. It's simply a pin that's in the gun. You pop it out. Now you have 30 rounds in the magazine. So you have a law, and that just hinders like law-abiding citizens, their enjoyment of their weapons and just using them responsibly. So like that's what I mean. So someone who understood guns would be like, that's kind of a redundant law. Like there's no point of it. Right? So that's what I mean. Just if you understand how the guns work and how these functions and everything, then you'd be more informed in creating laws. Even if you're against, like you do want more gun control, you could at least implement stuff that would actually work.
Yeah, like you gotta have knowledge of the guns themselves, right?
Yeah, I could promise you, half the people that want gun control have never held a gun or know how it works.
Well, I mean, half the people that want gun control seem to have the complete opposite opinion on drugs too, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to like guns or you have to be, an avid gun supporter. I'm just saying you should at least know how they
know your shit.
Know your shit. Yeah, if you want to ban it, at least be informed on it. Right? So
I see a lot of people crying for gun control are lefties who have never, like all of you said, touched a gun. So that's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, one big thing is that they've never touched a gun. They're really the only sources of information that they have are other people who's never touched guns and are probably afraid of guns too. So I think it is at the end of the day a part of, I don't want to say getting involved in an echo chamber, but it does stream towards that direction.
No,
Well,
exactly.
What about in Canada? Do you think we need more gun control than we have, less, or do you think it's perfect the way we are?
Honestly, I think Canadian laws and how to get a gun and stuff, I think it's fine. I think the thing that we do need to get rid of is the restricted category. I don't think there should be a category for restricted weapons, and I think the ammo capacity should, the magazine capacity should change as well.
Is that a standard that you could apply to any other country, or is that like specific to Canada because of our political culture surrounding guns?
Well, it's like I'm not sure how other countries categorize their guns, but in Canada, for instance, an AR-15, for example, is a restricted weapon. I only could fire that at a shooting range, but I can buy this Israeli Tavor, which is a more modern weapon, shoots the same round, 5.56, can do just as much damage, but it's completely it's a non-restricted weapon. So the only reason why the AR-15 is restricted is just because of the bad publicity. So
I saw this.
Laws like that should be. Go ahead.
I saw this meme floating around of
I like those.
something that looks like a. Yeah, it's something that looks like a handgun versus a AR-15, and the meme was like both of those guns do the same amount of damage, but the AR-15 gets so much shit because it's a quote-unquote scary-looking gun.
Well, that's funny.
It's like the same argument with a pit bull, right? Like you're not allowed to have a pit bull in so many places.
Then the ammo
Just because
has something to do with it too, because there's armor-piercing rounds and like different
Sorry?
ammos do different kinds of things.
Well, yeah, but you can get with the ammunition, for instance, the AR-15 is 5.56, and there is a lot of weapons that are non-restricted that receive that. If I was to show you, you'd think, oh, that's a harmless gun, but it does the same thing, and you can get armor-piercing rounds for that.
I've always found that argument odd. It doesn't matter what gun I have in my hand. If I shoot you with it in the right spot, you will die.
Yes. Yeah, like don't get me wrong. Different guns have different capabilities in killing potential, I guess. Right? If you were to have a submachine gun compared to a rifle, a semi, you could kill people at a farther distance. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to the person. I believe it's mental health. I believe there should be, maybe there should be greater checks on people's backgrounds. But the thing is, they have that in the United States. If you have a criminal record, you can't get a gun.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of these crimes, again, happen through illegal gun ownership. So, and actually, there's a statistic out there. I forget what the exact numbers are, but actually, gun owners are least likely to commit any crimes. And that goes as far as even getting speeding tickets. That's how actually responsible. I'm not. I get a lot of tickets myself, but in general, compared to the general population, they are less likely to commit any crimes.
Like the ones that are irresponsible probably go to jail and have their license revoked. So
yeah. True. Another point that sometimes pops up against guns is that how people view them as like a more impersonal way of killing someone. If you have the intention of killing someone, it's more impersonal, as in you point to shoot it. You don't actually feel it.
I don't call that a good argument against guns, because then you're just talking about simply how efficient killing someone is and the specific methods of it are. Like, I don't think it's an argument against legislation against guns. I think it's more of an argument of, oh, swords are better than guns, why don't you own a sword kind of thing. Like, I think it's a preference argument more than an actual legislation argument.
Well, I can kind of see it though, right? Because when you stab someone with a knife, you feel them. You're right next to them. When you're running somebody over in a truck, you feel the bodies. Presumably, I've never done it, so I don't know. But I'm sure that you.
I've run
kind
over
of feel it, right?
On the road once by accident, and you do that.
You know what? I'd say, like, I've seen a bunch of interviews that snipers, combat snipers that served in Afghanistan and stuff, and a lot of soldiers that come back from Iraq and stuff, you know, they have PTSD and they're using guns to kill people. I'm sure they've seen people blown to pieces and stuff. That's kind of one of the variables. But they also talk about how, you know, when you have someone in the crosshair of a gun and you're thinking in your head, hey, I'm going to end this guy's life, specifically when it comes to snipers, it does take a mental toll.
Yeah.
And that's something they're trained to overcome. So I've in practice, I don't think that I don't agree with it, just because, you know, professional killers who go out in war situations in which they've killed multiple people have said that, you know, it's caused them some mental strain, and just the first time ever having someone in their scope made them go through a whole process of thinking, like, this guy has a family, I'm going to end his life. So I don't know, even as impersonal as it is, especially when you're a sniper and you're 1,000 feet away doing it too. Yeah, I don't know. If you see some massacres with guns, you shoot someone with a shotgun, you're blowing their whole arm off, and they're not going to instantly die. They're going to be there in pain, and they're going to be like, you know, screaming in agony and stuff, and there's going to be body and flesh.
Yeah, no. So that definitely would be more personal, right? You would feel that more. But when it comes to handguns and your restricted ones, they seem like they would just pierce and kill, right? No mess.
Why does the level of personability matter to begin with? Like, I don't see how that holds any weight in this argument.
Sorry, what did you say?
Like, why does the level of, you know, how personal it might be or how close it might be to the actual person, like, why does, like, I don't see this holding any weight in the argument.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
I just want to put it out there. No. I just want to put it out there really quickly. The very first time I ever held a gun, you know, like you feel the weight of what it can do. I mean, I guess you could also take that as a pun, but when you're holding it, you know, you really realize, like, oh shit, like this thing, it can kill, you know, like it's not just you can't just point it around everywhere. Like when you're holding it, you know, it hits you. You're like, oh shit, you know.
No, even with me, like when I have my gun, even if I know it's fully empty, there's no ammunition in it and everything, there's still this like mental block. I can't even point it at someone. Just the idea, like it's something I guess you have to experience yourself. And I think a lot of times people can maybe imagine it being not that personal, but it really, you know, you have to actually be holding a gun and actually point it at someone and tell me if it doesn't feel impersonal. Because you understand, the concept is you're holding a weapon, you know, when you pull that trigger, they're going to die. You might stab someone, they might not die, but most of the time when you shoot someone, they're going to die. So whether or not, if it's going to be more gruesome, whether it's going to take them longer to die, at the end of the day, for the person to make that decision that I'm going to end that person's life, I don't think it matters whether or not they have a gun or not, because if you reach that level that you're going to kill someone, the lack of empathy that you have towards that person has vanished.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, like, basically what you're saying is then that person then has some sympathy towards their victim if they're considering that. The second you decide to kill someone, I think you've lost all sympathy towards that person. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you'll consider that.
Just to be clear, it sounds like this is something that I don't actually agree with. I'm just trying to push the arguments of the other side. I think this is one that would have been brought up.
No, I get that. I just don't think it's a very good argument to bring up to begin with, because, like I said, it holds, like, at the end of the day, if you have someone with the intention to kill, give them a sword, give them a gun, it won't matter. Like, what I'm trying to say is that
supplying him the means of, you know, I think we talked about this a little bit in our Steven Crowder stream, right? Where if a white guy with, I don't know, however many follows on Twitter is going up against a black woman that has 10 times as many followers, you know, she has the power to do more harm to someone by harassing them, right? So if two homicidal maniacs, one has a knife and the other has some sort of machine gun, obviously the guy with the machine gun is going to do more damage than the guy with the knife, right?
I mean, the guy with the car is going to do more damage than the guy with the gun. So, I mean,
it depends how many people there are, right?
Well, I mean, okay, so let's imagine that the person is going for the optimal scenario, right? And they're going to a crowd where there's a bunch of people. I feel like using a vehicle is better than that. You can't just, like, you can't break the argument down to which is the most useful for killing, because I mean, in that case, then the plane would be the most useful for killing, and we shouldn't have pilots anymore.
No, I know.
You actually brought up a really good point. Actually, what's hilarious is that I don't think people realize how hard it is to shoot a gun and shoot it accurately. It requires a lot of training.
Yeah, like driving a truck through a crowd of people is way harder to do than shooting a crowd of people with a fully automatic weapon.
Oh, no, it is. I don't think
we could be talking about trucks. At least mass immigration in Europe has taught us something.
Yeah, well,
when it comes to
Go ahead.
Well, I think that most people who think that shooting guns is so easy, I think that they only get their gun knowledge from movies and stuff, because, you know, in movies, shooting a gun is no big deal, but in real life, as you said, it's much harder.
Oh, no, exactly. It's like I could promise you this right now. I'll put $100 down, and if someone who's never really used a weapon, if I gave you a handgun, and I put a target 20 feet in front of you, I can promise you're not going to hit the bullseye, and I can assure you'll probably miss most of the targets.
All you got to do is turn it sideways when you shoot it. You'll hit it perfectly every time.
Yeah, no. To actually kill a lot of people with a gun, you really have to be, like, trained. And you got to put a lot of dedication and practice into it.
It's very easy to demonize guns, right? I mean, the 20th century was characterized by 3 global wars, right? World War I, World War II, the Cold War. And the Cold War wasn't fought with guns necessarily, but also just the state of war and the state of tension throughout all of the 20th century for the most part. Really, it gives us a very easy picture of guns as these evil things that are meant for killing, right? Not just like these moral neutral tools that can be used however you want them to, right?
No, exactly. Like guns, you have to look at guns as tools. And you can use a tool in any way you want, right? I can give you a kitchen knife. You can use it to cook up, you know, some nice meals, and you can use it to go cut people's heads off. How you use it. So
it's just how we see it, because cars, we know we generally use them to go from point A to point B, and guns are what were used in the 2 biggest wars of the past century to kill the other side, right? So it's very easy to characterize it that way.
That kind of brings me to another point. Is I mean, like, I know, Mark, you watch Steven Crowder. You probably have seen this video already, but he talks about how, or maybe it was Ben Shapiro. I'm not really sure.
I watch both. Don't worry.
But they were talking about how a gun can be passive while a car can't. You know, like you can have a gun on your hip and not do anything with it, but as soon as you sit in the car, you're putting you have everyone's lives in your hand, you know, like you could, I don't know, it's just...
On that note, I can tell you one of the tensest things I've ever been through was being alone with my instructor in driver's ed. Whenever we were alone in the car, and how fucking serious they are with every little thing you do while you're driving that car.
Oh, man.
And all the videos they show you of, like, people who ended up in prison because they were driving under the influence. And they were just totally innocent.
Believe it or not, I've never seen any of these videos, and I've had a lot of driving classes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I think we're pretty much all in agreement. Francis, I guess, a bit in the middle.
I always am. I just don't know enough about any kind of.
Well, it's good that our moderator is the middle ground guy. I think that's a great idea.
No, that's great. No, I think so. That would be horrible, I think, if he agreed with us.
And I'd like to reiterate, we're always looking for somebody on the left to join us and talk. It's very hard to get anyone from the left to join us and talk.
Yes, I scout you, Francis, to go and find one.
Yeah, they would take you as a very reasonable person, I think.
Do me a favor, go a little bit more towards the left so you can be our leftist.
I mean, I can debate the left side, no problem, but it wouldn't be as honest.
I mean, I used to be on the left side, so I could debate, but again, it wouldn't be as honest, and I'd probably end up making fun of myself a lot too. So,
I'm not really sure where I stand on gun control. It's like I said, I think it's very suited to the political culture of the country that you're talking about, right? So my opinion on it would change from country to country. And
this looks like, for example, like military.
I know a lot about is Canada and the United States. I don't know a whole lot outside of that, so it's hard for me to find.
Oh, no, exactly. Like, let's say, for example, I'll just cherry pick here, just for the sake of getting the concept through. Let's say somewhere like Syria, like a place that I think obviously needs it needs a firm head. It needs some kind of dictator involved at this point. You don't want to give these people guns, obviously. For example.
Or, the Obama-Iran deal, since we're talking about that. Supplied them with all the weapons they needed, and they're the #1 perpetrator of terrorism globally. So.
There you go.
Right.
Syria's like my ex-girlfriend. Since we're talking about that.
So you must have one psychotic-ass ex-girlfriend then.
Oh, she's got a fuck ton of problems, but for some reason I wanted to get involved anyway, just like Syria.
All right. Well, there is a second point to the discussion. So our actual topic was not just about guns, but also about their portrayal in media. And this was kind of brought up for a moment there with, guns. They seem much easier to use in films than they are actually. So
I mean, everything's easier in films.
Yeah.
I think there's a very good reason for that. Because you look at it in films.
Sorry, goes in.
Yeah.
Right. So I was thinking about a few years back. I was on YouTube and I was watching Jurassic Park clips, and you know that clever girl scene, you know, where this guy was aiming his gun at this thing, but then the Velociraptor comes out from the side, like it ambushes him from the side, and he's the clever girl, and then he gets eaten by her. Yeah. In the comments, this one person was like, why did he say clever girl? Just, aim his gun at her and fire. And then this other guy responded, like, clearly you've never handled a gun in real life.
Isn't Jurassic Park your favorite movie, DJ Khaled? What do you have to say about that?
Okay, so mainly because guns seem so easy to use in films. You got to remember that 90% of characters using guns in films, it's already established that they have used a gun before to begin with. Look at most times, gun owners and gun users in films, it's practically their job to use a gun.
Well, yeah.
So it is going to be so easy for them. I think a lot of times as well. You see this other side too. When someone obviously, I'd imagine would be as difficult as in real life, but most times when somebody uses a gun for the first time, in particular against another person, it is a really tough mental process for them. These characters.
I'll tell you something. Like when I watch action movies with a few of my friends who are gun owners, half the time we're like, "That's such bullshit. There's no way." But even when it comes to movies like John Wick, where the guy is a professional assassin, or Jason Statham, there are people that are trained at a certain level that could use a gun in some way. In that fashion, but in the movies, it just makes it look so easy. But even if you watch these guys shoot guns in real life, like a lot of the guys in the special forces and stuff, they would make it look easy. Like any professional, they would make anything really look easy because they're so talented. But once you go and apply that, you're gonna be like, what am I doing wrong here? Is this like you know what I mean? So there is that misconception, but I think that misconception goes to a lot of times. A lot of people watch Fast and the Furious, but all of a sudden they don't think they're professional police car drivers, right? So,
I mean, that really, in reality, it applies to everything. I think it's just handled differently with guns. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I'm just saying for the record. For the record, I could totally chain save out of my car and drive it away. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like speaking from a musician's perspective. Sorry, you go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay, so in regards to the news and stuff, I know the 15 most popular news websites, 4 of them are Huffington Post, New York Times, CNN, and Fox News. Okay, 3 of the 4 of those are left-leaning, and I was doing some research for one of my papers, and I'm doing it on guns in the media. So one of the points I made was that 3 of the 4, the 3 left-leaning news sites, they all mentioned how many guns that the Las Vegas shooter had in his hotel room, or how many he owned, or whatever. The only one that didn't was Fox. Now, what do you guys think about that?
Well,
didn't the Las Vegas shooter use automatic rifles or some shit?
The guns themselves weren't
And
illegal, but
those things. What?
the guns themselves weren't illegal, but he did mod them illegally.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't read those articles. I think it has more to do with the reason why they brought it up.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to ask. Is like, why do you guys think other than? Sorry.
I think it does have a lot to do more with the reason why they brought it up, because you bring up just raw numbers. They do evoke an emotion. I think what a lot of these sources want to do is evoke the kind of emotion, say, okay, you should be scared of these weapons. You should be scared of these things. Look at how much of them are around. Look, this could happen in your neighborhood tomorrow, kind of thing.
Honestly, I don't see it as that way. To go back on the two things, the first one when it regards to media, one thing the media doesn't do well is show, well, I guess unless it's like Rambo, but a lot of movies don't show actually how much damage guns do when people do get shot. It makes it seem like it's actually like nothing. But you get shot by a gun, especially in the head, part of your head's going to be missing, right?
Right.
But it depends the kind. But a lot of these movies with the guns that they're using and shooting people with, there'd be a lot more damage done to these people, and they kind of, sugarcoat it in a way. But to answer your question about the Huffington Post thing, I think the purpose of it was to push a narrative that the gun laws allow people to build arsenals that are capable of killing a bunch of people. That no one should have that many guns, type of thing, or just to show how maybe ridiculous the current policies are that allow people to amass so many guns and stuff like that. So.
Even if he has more than one in the hotel room, he can only shoot one at a time, right? I mean, that's just common sense. The real question here is how much damage he could have done if he had a silencer. Let's be honest.
Remember, switching to your sidearm is always faster than reloading.
Yeah.
Imagine how much damage the truck driver in Edmonton could have done if he had a silencer.
Well, the thing is, too, it doesn't matter how many guns this guy had, right? So what if he had a bunch of guns? He could have had a sniper rifle, an assault rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. Anyone that wanted to kill the most amount of people would have stuck with he was using a Daniel Defense AR-15, and he just would have had a bunch of magazines to just keep reloading them. There would have been no point of switching to different platforms unless he was going at different distances. The only reason why different guns exist is because they excel at different ranges and stuff in different situations. So if he's already picked the situation that he's going to be in, I honestly don't even know why he brought up a bunch of guns. And a lot of people actually, when it comes to this whole Vegas thing, believe that there's something a little bit more nefarious going on in the background than what's being told to the public.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot more to that story. There's some missing truth there.
Let's not go too far into that, because then we're just going to go into the rabbit hole of conspiracies.
Yeah, and then we need Alex Joyce over there.
Let me tell you, I have sources. I have sources that Antifa was getting.
I think he was a wizard, personally.
Yeah.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I don't know what.
Well, that brings me now to another question, and so I mean, we all know that the media is inherently biased. They're going to try to propel whatever agenda that they want to, right? So these left-leaning news sources will probably try to push this gun control narrative. So if like moving forward, how do you guys think how do you think they should talk about these kinds of like gun-related incidents when it comes to the news or stuff like that?
Try to report it as okay, if I had it my way, honestly, on a lot of these shootings, I think the best thing you could do is report them as objectively as possible. Just give the fact that there's this guy, he killed this many people. That's a problem we're still trying to figure out more. I think tying it to a political agenda, first of all, it cheapens the impact of. Secondly, like I said, it does become more agenda pushing than raising concern for the specific issue.
This may sound crude, but if a massacre like Las Vegas happens and the first thing you feel isn't just an unconditional surge of sympathy, you are a piece of garbage.
No, I agree.
So for the people on the left, like Hillary Clinton, the first thing doing, let's not make this political, but what if he had a silencer from the NRA that they want to make more available? No, you are a piece of garbage if you go that route. There is a time to talk about policy.
You know what's actually funny? You bring up the silencers thing. And that's another misconception. Silencers
no, 100% it is, yeah.
Silencers don't make
Mark,
silent. You can still hear them.
Oh, yeah, DJ?
Mark, cut off a little. Can you just repeat your point?
Can I what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You just cut off for a bit. I heard like the first. I missed like the first half of your arguments.
I think it depends on who you are, but in general, if a massacre like Las Vegas happens, and the first thing that you feel isn't just an unconditional surge of sympathy, then it says something about you. I think there's a flaw in your character if you just don't have sympathy for these people. So for people like Hillary, who immediately the first thing they do is they make it political about the NRA wanting to make silencers more available, that's a horrible move, in my opinion. But then like Jimmy Kimmel, late night hosts, their job is to provide a little bit of relief for that. Jimmy Kimmel is Kimmel and Fallon I get mixed up all the time. Jimmy Kimmel was the one who did the gun speech. His job is to provide comedy and a little bit of relief. And the first thing he does is he goes and he cries on camera and he gives incorrect facts about guns and about the shooting and how a lot of the stuff he got, technically he got it legally.
Well, so now that kind of relates back to what I was trying to get us talking about is instead of, crying on camera and making up these facts, like quote facts unquote. How do you think he should have done it? How do you think he should have talked about it? In the case of Jimmy
Kimmel, I think his job was to provide comedy, right?
I
agree with Steven Crowder had to say about this, though. He's like, your job as a late night host is more important on days like this where it's hard than on days where it's easy to do, because America is going to be looking for some sort of relief after a tragedy like that. And for someone like Kimmel, that's his job, is to provide that. And if he can't do that, frankly, he shouldn't be in that business. But then for a government official, I think the response should be, somewhat different than someone like Jimmy Kimmel, who's just a late night host and his job is to provide comedy, right? So I think your response depends on what your role is, right?
Well,
private citizens just want to go rant about whatever they want. That's a whole other thing that technically they can do that. But for someone who represents something in media or in politics, they should have a certain set of responses that just provide empathy. And if they don't do that, like within the first week or so, if their first goal is something else political, then I think that's horrible, personally.
Well, Mark, I think you have a point there. I was browsing through Twitter when the Las Vegas shooting was still happening. I didn't have the full story of it. I still had no idea what was going on. I was browsing through the hashtag, and a really popular tweet I came across was somebody, just crying about gun control. This wasn't an official or someone well known, just a regular person on Twitter, but it was still a pretty popular tweet about how there needs to be gun control, and my reaction.
I mean, not just that. And then there were other people who were rationalizing it because, the country music festival, they were probably Trump supporters anyway.
I know, that's so
my reaction to that was similar to yours. I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like a bunch of people got shot, and that's your first reaction? Holy shit.
I also think it's important to say that I've seen people from different parts of the spectrum, try to, I guess, politicize it in a way. I've heard people say, this guy's definitely involved with that. Or every time something happens, before you know any information, it was a Muslim who did it. So.
No, that's equally as bad.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
But I mean, then there's the contrary too, because a lot of people say it's bad to politicize this, and then when an actual Muslim terrorist attack happens, they say, oh no, you can't blame immigration or Muslim or anything like that. Like, there's a difference. In that case,
I think it's different when you have all the information and when you have a direct cause figured out. I think that's when it becomes different.
I mean, when something immediately happens and there's no direct ties to a specific cause, like Islamic terrorism, if you're doing it in the name of Allah or in the name of ISIS or something like that, if there's no ties to that, you shouldn't try and create it to support the narrative that Donald Trump makes that, we need to crack down on Islamic terrorism. I mean, if it is there, then you need to act on that. But if it's not there, you can't just create it either.
I think the whole thing is don't fill holes that are unfilled with your own political biases. Just stick to the objective information until you have everything.
I actually have a question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you have to say, and then I got a question after.
All right.
Oh, okay. Oh, then okay. So my question is, with the Vegas shooting, do you guys consider? So this was a big debate actually. A lot of people were doing. They're saying that this was a terrorist attack. The Vegas shootings was a terrorist attack. Other people believe no.
I knew what you were gonna say before you said it.
Yeah. So
it's not a terrorist attack because there is no confirmed political he didn't do it for any political reason as far as we know. So the definition of terrorism, I believe, is when you commit acts of terror to further something like a political ideology.
I'll get the actual definition for us right now.
That's all I. That's also all I heard. Is just
unlawful.
We don't know.
Sorry.
I heard the guy was an Antifa sympathizer or something, but that's still.
I would say classify it as a terrorist group 100%. Okay. But the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians in the pursuit of political aims. That's the definition.
That's the thing, in the pursuit of political gain. As far as I know, I don't know if the guy did it for political gain, so I don't know if...
We still don't really know his motive, and I honestly suspect that there's some things about that shooting that are being willfully...
Covered up? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, definitely.
If it comes out...
There always are.
Especially in this, there's a clear trail of breadcrumbs that leads to somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead, Nadine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if it comes out that he went out to shoot at this music festival just because it was country music, so they have to be Republicans or whatever, they have to be gun owners, so this is why I'm gonna shoot them. If that comes out, then yes, I would classify it as an act of terrorism. But as of now, I don't think we have the information to say that.
Exactly.
But then there's an extreme where we try to create the information too. Do you all remember I think it was in Quebec, there was someone that shot up a mosque, I believe it was?
Yep.
Or something like that. There was a white dude and then his Indian friend, or a brown-skinned friend, and the brown-skinned guy got let off. And the white guy, they tried to blame it that he was a Trump supporter because he liked this page on Facebook.
Oh my god!
But meanwhile, he also liked the Facebook page of Jack Layton and the NDP, and they didn't mention that. So it's not like, oh, he's an NDP supporter. Clearly, that's why he shut up.
Nowadays, liking a page on Facebook really means nothing.
Oh yeah. Sometimes it just means that you're following them, right?
Yeah, you
even
just
though now it's separate on Facebook, right? You can follow without liking.
This isn't just this came directly from the CBC, our national broadcaster, that he was a Trump supporter, and it was somehow Trump's fault because he liked his page on Facebook. If this were just some fucking blogger or something like that, I think it would be horrible, but I could see where it's coming from. This came from the CBC, and I think that says a lot about the bias and the agenda of our national broadcaster and about the Canadian media in general. The Canadian media is very leftist and it's government owned. So.
CBC is a joke. CBC is such a joke. I don't even know anyone that watches CBC. I
agree.
I'm gonna turn on the TV and watch CBC. Said no one ever.
CBC is worse than CNN in my opinion. CNN has more influence, but CBC in terms of quality-wise is far worse than CNN.
Can we just all agree that Murdoch Mysteries is a great show?
I've never seen it. Sorry.
What is Murdoch Mysteries?
You just watch it. It's amazing.
I'm watching House of Cards right now. I just started amid the Kevin Spacey controversy. I don't know if that's a bad thing.
Oh, it's a great show. I've watched it since the beginning. It's great.
I didn't even know it was about politics at first until I just started checking it out.
That's all it is.
I didn't think it was about cards.
I saw a poster parody of House of Cards, and they and it was like House of Clintons or something. That was
yeah, basically
those where none of the characters are likable. You know what I mean?
That's the thing, right? But the two main characters are technically Democrats, I think, in the show.
That's fine. I don't have a biased hatred against Democrats. I just hate this.
No, not at all.
That's emerged in the past 5 years or so.
Right? No. I'm just saying that it's curious because they try to show what an extreme Democrat would be, right?
Say in Breaking Bad, I wouldn't have been able to love that show as much if I didn't have a Jesse character to attach onto. If it were just Walter White and a bunch of people like him that were gradually became more and more unlikable, I would have hated the show. But because Jesse was there, I was able to attach onto him and then appreciate Walter White even more as his contrary. With in House of Cards, when it's just these unlikable characters that are corrupt to the core, I don't know. I can't follow that.
Hey, Mark.
I could never identify with Jesse. You know, actually, Walter's character.
Well, not
I
like
understand
someone
him.
I personally identify with, but someone I can kind of root for.
Well, that's the thing. I can't root for him. I thought he made just the worst decisions in his life, and it's all his fault. Whereas Walter, he's coerced into going into a life of crime because, well, he wants to provide for his family. It's absolutely relatable.
But it started as that. It didn't end as that, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Walter
I know.
harder to back as the series went on, but I could always back Jesse because he had my heart.
Mark, I have a question.
Oh, what's up, DJ Khaled?
So. Okay, I don't know if you guys.
What?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a show full of Walter White, would it be fair to call it the White House?
The White House.
I
would watch that. Actually, I really if we're talking about spin-offs, I think we're getting way off topic now, but I think Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad. Personally, I love that show so much.
Oh, that show! I completely didn't realize that they were going more than one season with it. So now I look back and it's like 3 seasons already.
Season 3 right now, I think. Season 2 is on Netflix, but we're like, I think done season 3.
Wow. Okay. Well,
I have a
okay.
question.
Well,
Do you need to watch Breaking Bad to get Better Call Saul?
Do I what? Better Call Saul?
Do you need to watch Breaking Bad to get Better Call Saul, or?
Not really. There's characters in Breaking Bad that sort of make appearances in Better Call Saul. It makes it better to see, but it's not mandatory.
Okay.
Breaking
Because I
Bad
do want
was
to
a good
watch
show.
and watch Breaking Bad now.
There's a lot of instances where maybe some gun control could have been necessary in both of those shows.
Yeah. Let's try to rein it back in.
Yeah,
I don't know. Nadine, you're doing a great job of pushing the conversation forward. Is there anything you think that we left out?
I think it's important to kind of talk about I guess the way news sources, the mainstream media, you know, even on Twitter, you know, the hashtags, and on Facebook, the trending stuff. I think it's important to talk about why those, like how am I going to word this? It's important to kind of try to figure out why they're talking about the things that they're talking about and why they're talking about them in a certain way. So that's kind of why I was wondering what you guys were thinking about.
I mean, there's been countless recordings now from like the New York Times, from CNN, those two especially, that saying like I remember there was videos about the whole Russian hacking thing where they outright admitted that, yeah, we have no proof of this, but it's getting us views, and we wouldn't go against Obama in this way because that goes against our fan base, right?
I actually remember
New York Times more recently saying that, of course, they have a bias, and they're going with that bias because it goes with their fan base. So, yeah, inarguably, and they've admitted to having bias by this point.
I actually remember once this actually happened with Bernie. I forget which show was he in CNN, but he was in a show on CNN. He was on the phone, and when he started bringing up fake news, he was cut off for a little bit, quote unquote. right when he was about to say whatever, right when he was about to make his.
Wow. But I mean, I also think it's important to notice the word choice. You know, like just from what I know with those the Huffington Post, New York Times, and CNN, like how I mentioned before, when they were talking about the Las Vegas shooter, they mentioned the word gunman more than Fox News did. So I think that's interesting to look at and consider as well.
No, for sure. There's obviously the way media portrays a story, depending on their bias, that portrayal changes. And it's definitely recognizable, definitely studyable, and I'm sure people do that as researchers around the world.
What gets me is when a source calls itself objective, and it clearly brings out subjective opinions constantly.
Well, do you think that they actually believe that they're being objective, or do you think they're just saying it?
Oh no, there's no
Clearly,
doubt.
Don't believe it. You have to be. you have to be on some level of retarded to, you know, actually think that
I mean,
Ooh.
unless
they're objective.
is left-wing thought, then
Well, you know, but you know what? Just to be devil's advocate, to be fair, are we being objective?
No.
No, definitely
Right?
not.
Well, the difference is we can acknowledge our own bias.
I would, yeah, I would, but I would. The difference is, the reason why I have these beliefs, I'll provide facts, stats for them. Whereas I think the left usually argues off the base of emotion and doesn't really have anything substantial to back it up, other than finding ambiguous numbers to try to push their narrative.
I remember there was a PragerU video that said the difference between the left and the right is the right ass doesn't do good and the left ass doesn't feel good. And I think that's a very broad way to categorize two political spectrums because there's good and bad ideas.
could you repeat
But
that?
like in terms of, I think right now we're in the middle of both a culture war and a war in terms of policy. And the culture war is what's taking the front ground right now. The culture war, Trump is winning hands down, and the left doesn't feel good, and the right doesn't do good. But we have to acknowledge policy as well on both sides.
Let's not ignore the fact though that people can be emotional on both sides. It sounds like.
Of course.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I think we've gone over a lot.
Yeah.
It's been when did we start? 9:30. So it's been nearly
almost
2 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, really? It's been
Probably go on for 2 more.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well, I'd like to too, but yeah, class in the morning.
Yeah, I got a 10 a.m. class that I probably should go to, but I probably won't as well.
All right. Well, I think this was pretty good. Thank you all for joining. Let's sign each other out.
Wait! I just restarted the router. What's happening?
Huh? What?
I just restarted my router again. What's going on?
Oh no, we're kind of just closing off now.
Yeah, why don't we I'll give like a closing statement. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, that's what I was about to.
Okay.
No, don't worry. The format of these discussions here, they're not very structured. I think, and I think we should just leave it that way. It's more natural. We can't even. I don't think there's a point in doing anything structured if we don't have, at least some sort of representation on the other side as well, which we don't really have right now. We're just playing devil's advocate from time to time.
I got a brand free speech as a person issue instead of just a right wing issue, which it's seen as right now. Sadly,
Can we,
unfortunately, yeah.
Can we mention?
It actually annoys me.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go George.
Oh, well, Khalid was speaking. I'll let him talk first. If you
I
want.
think he just stalled. I think his router gave out.
Oh, okay. So anyways, I just want to bring up that we were supposed to do that cultural appropriation video, and the problem with getting people to come from the other side so we can have a proper dialogue is a lot of times the people on the left just don't want to come on here and on their side. So we couldn't. We didn't. It's not that we backed out of the cultural appropriation talk. We just didn't have anyone that wanted to fight for that side.
Well, they have like a moral high ground excuse, right? Like I remember when Milo went on at Berkeley, and there was one heckler in the crowd, and Milo said, "Hey, why don't you come up and actually debate with us?" And the response was, "I don't debate with white supremacists."
Yeah, that's easy. Easy way to opt out of that. But yeah, if you want to close it off, Francis.
Right. So yeah, let's go by order that's on the stream then. Xin, you're all the way on the left. So go. Closing statements. Maybe talk about even free speech if you think there's a free speech issue somewhere in gun control rights as well. Gun control discussion.
I don't think there's any free speech restrictions on this topic, and maybe not in Canada at the moment. I think it's probably a different story down south, but I don't really see how if you're pro-gun you're getting shut out of the debate. I don't see that happening here. Maybe it's because gun control's not that big of an issue in this country. That's my closing statement on how the two topics are connected. All right, who's next?
Okay, well, next actually is me on the list, but I'll reserve that for the end since I'm also the moderator, technically. Mark, you're up next.
When it comes to gun laws, I think we have to look at the political culture within each individual country. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all glove. But in terms of how the media represents it, we all just agreed like 15 minutes ago that they are like inarguably biased in everything that they do. And we can see that even though their ratings are falling, they're still not really budging with that narrative. So it's not like if we demand something else from them, they'll change. I think we have to just be able to, educate ourselves to take what's said about these kinds of issues with a grain of salt and be able to form our own opinions based on the real facts.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next in line, Khaled. Go ahead.
So I have a few things to say. First of all, I want to start off with that. I think the gun laws here do need some tweaking. I do think that there are a lot of misinformed laws going on, and I do think that things could go a little less strict. That being said, I also think that the threat of guns, quote unquote, is being hugely exaggerated here, and especially in the United States. I mean, people make it sound like hellhole in there in terms of guns, and I think that is exaggerated. And I do think that perception does need to change. I do think that people need to know the truth of what's going on, especially since all the statistics are there. And lastly, I'm going to say this, that one thing I never understood is why people like making guns a right-wing issue. I really don't think it's a matter of right-wing or left-wing owning guns. I think it's more of an issue of individual liberty, individual freedom. So I think this issue in particular is irrelevant to the right and left of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Okay. George, you're up next.
All right. I'm just gonna close it off with like a really nuanced closing statement that guns don't kill people. People kill people. That's all I have to say. Yeah, that's it. We already spoke for 2 hours. Everyone knows my opinion. And that really sums it up. That really does sum it up. Then.
That's true.
Yeah, honestly, your input, George, for this conversation was very, very valuable. I'd like to thank you for that.
No problem.
Dallas.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank George as well for his input. It definitely did educate me quite a bit. And I have to say, he did kind of sway my opinion with some of his facts on gun ownership in Canada. And I've always seen it as this kind of too restricted thing because I don't know many people that own guns, and I realize that it's just a volition thing and not so much an actual legislative red tape around guns. And so, I've kind of actually, I think I've swayed a little bit more towards the middle and saying that regulation is good. Although I do agree again with George on his getting rid of the whole restricted category and kind of setting it into sort of one license. But yeah, in all things considered, I think I've actually changed my opinion on gun ownership in Canada.
I'm glad.
And in terms of political opinion, that never happens.
In terms of the free speech aspect, I don't think there is much free speech to deal with gun control. I mean, I think you'd have to make the stretch when it comes to like the media. I think you could, but I don't think it's. I think it's more just a controversial topic right now with especially the mass shooting that happened today. So yeah.
Today, did something happen today?
Yeah, there was a church.
Yeah, the church
in Texas that 27 dead, I think.
Oh God,
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
I think it's a pretty tall. I thought that's why we were doing this discussion today. But yeah, I think in the political climate that we have, where gun control comes up in the media a lot, I do agree with the non-fair shake on the whole gun rights side. But I don't think it's a free speech issue personally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Nadine, you're next.
Okay, so I agree that, the gun laws will depend on, different cultures and different, I guess, socio-political environments or whatever. But I do think it is the responsibility of the media to portray guns in a more neutral way. I think it's not fair to the public for them to kind of push their own biases and to not really give the facts. I find so many people are not informed on what it's like to get a gun or like any of the rules or anything like that. And I think it would be really beneficial if the media would help to, you know, give that information to the public, you know. So that's where I am on that.
Okay. Any free speech stuff you want to add on there? Or?
No, I don't think that there is really much that you could link between the two right now. Maybe in the future something will come up, but as of now, no.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I agree with everyone here insofar as the free speech issue. There isn't really a free speech issue when it comes to discussing gun control. It's out. It's represented by both sides. Fairly equally even, I'd say, even on mainstream media, which was not the case last week with what we discussed then, climate change. Now, when it comes to gun control proper, I hate to say it, George, but you know, it hasn't. My opinion hasn't changed that much. My real, you know, I'm heavily focused on individualism, right? So I definitely see guns as tools, right? It's people that kill people, not guns that kill people, you know, on their own. But I'm still not convinced when it comes to why guns should be freely available in general. Besides the whole, oh, what if your government is being weird at the moment? Right. That's the thing that's a new thing that I didn't realize, and I must admit that does change my mind a bit. But apart from that, in our countries, societies, I think the way the things are right now is fairly good. Yeah. So sorry, that's not very climactic, let's say, but
no, that's
yeah.
okay.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We did have a few viewers. I'm not sure if they knew us personally or not, but
we had a whole few viewers. Oh,
well, yeah, no, we had I think 8 or 9 at the peak, which is, you know, much more than last week. So that's great.
Yeah, I'm surprised we have any, to be honest.
Hey,
well, no, it's absolutely normal. We don't really advertise this that much. It's normal.
We got our Facebook, but yeah, we should get on that, DJ Khaled. What are we doing?
Hey, you're not the Facebook guy.
Yeah.
No, Maggie was supposed to be the Facebook girl. She proclaims herself as that.
He is the Facebook guy, not the Facebook girl.
No, my Facebook game is really strong. Don't worry. If you want me to get on that, I will.
Get on that and shitpost the shit out of this page.
Oh, shit posting on the page.
Well, you know what?
I don't know if that's a good idea. I'll just keep it on my Facebook page.
Let's end it, and then we could just we could do some shit posting afterwards.
I'm surprised Putin didn't hack the stream.
Yeah. Well, please keep in mind, of course, the people who are speaking right now, these are our individual opinions. It's not the opinion of the Free Speech Association as a whole. What else? Yeah, no, I think that's about it.
What else? I got something to add. Since we don't do drugs and
well, I also have something to add. Imagine the damage we as a group could have done if we had a silencer during the stream.
Well, I wouldn't be able to do anything at all with just a silencer. I'm sorry.
You shut up, Francis.
Literally just a silencer, not even a gun.
I mean,
the NRA wants to make more readily available.
Maybe you can use it as some sort of blowpipe.
Oh my god! No, I actually have one more real thing. Okay,
I got a sign.
Okay, do you guys know about the CNN ad, the whole "This is an Apple" thing?
Yeah.
The NRA on their actual real YouTube channel released a real response to that video, a real parody to that video, saying, "This is a lemon. Some people might try to tell you that it's a journalist for CNN." But it's not. And this is from the NRA. It's the funniest fucking thing.
Oh, man.
Okay. All right. Well, Yeah, no, well, I have to thank you all for controlling yourselves pretty well. I didn't have to step in
I'm but a
just like
dog.
last time that many times. Thank you, Nadine, for pushing the conversation forward when it came to media, because I was at a loss there of where to go.
You're supposed to be a communications major. What the hell?
Well,
Francis?
no, well, that's the thing. I've never considered gun control in the media, so that's why I suppose. Yeah, thank you again, George, for explaining to us the whole process. I wouldn't be able to do that at all for sure. Yeah, and yeah, that's about it. We have social media platforms. They should be in the description.
We'll be back next week.
We plan to do these kinds of streams every week. They're very informal.
And our next stream next week is going to be about single parenthood, right?
Is it? I didn't know.
I think we put, well, it's supposed to be this stream, but we pushed it to next week. I thought I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, you are right. It is supposed to be this week, but then Dee was like, "No, I can't make it here, so we got to push it to next week." And we were like, oh, all right.
Maybe we can do.
It's definitely a good thing.
Let's talk about this after the stream. Let's end the stream and then we can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again, and see you next time.
See you all next week.
Peace.
Peace.